Welcome to the Whiskey Vault. I'm Daniel Whittington, Chancellor of Wizard Academy and Whiskey Marketing School. Roy Williams taught me this, and I first read it in Magical Worlds from Dr. Jorge de Oliveira Martins, who is a Brazilian neuroscientist, and he talks about the original idea of this. And then Roy sort of reframed it in a way I had not thought of, and it has become sort of a tenet. We teach it in the school all the time. I talk about it in general when I'm referring to things like this. And the idea is the difference in life between nonfiction and fiction. And I'm not talking about in books. As marketers, a lot of the world sort of likes to act like marketers live in the world of only fiction, and the rest of us in the company have to live in the real world of nonfiction. And real business people deal with facts, and marketing people, they deal with fiction and nonsense. But what they don't understand is that we all live in a fiction, all of us. Roy said, the science is the study of objective reality, right? Art is the study of subjective reality. Now, here's the thing. In science, maybe you're dealing with some objective things. But as a human being, you are subject to, this is a really wordy, messy sentence. You are sort of, you can only view the world through your own subjective senses. Full stop. So, for example, electromagnetic waves are real, whether or not you believe in them or perceive them, depending on your ability to view a color spectrum, right? But the way they turn into colors in our mind that we see and identify, that's a fiction. So electromagnetic waves, nonfiction. How our brain turns it into color, it's our own little personal fiction. Vibrations traveling through air or water, nonfiction. The sound that we interpret in our brains after it hits our ears, fiction that our brain creates inside of our head. Chemicals dissolved in air or water, fact, nonfiction. The way we smell and taste and interpret these things, fiction. Our ability, as Dr. Jorge says, we cannot, the world is insidious, insipid, and silent. Or insipid, colorless, and silent until it hits our brains, right? And then it becomes the world that we think we are experiencing. Outside, it is none of those things. And that can be kind of terrifying to people, but the reality is all of the stuff that's happening around us, that's a subjective reality. But the way that we interpret it as we interact with it, subjective fiction. Our ability to communicate with anybody at any level is sort of based, and this is what Roy said, sort of based on the assumption that they are experiencing these subjective realities in a similar way to us. But when their reactions come from totally different backgrounds and totally different world experiences, then communication gets problematic. Now, we'll keep talking about that and finish it up. But first, Glenfarclas 17. I love Glenfarclas. I've talked about it. I think they're one of the original single running, brilliant, old school style distilleries. Their 12 is a classic. 180 years they've been making whiskey. Freaking direct fire stills, massive pot stills, actually. 6 stills, 3 wash spirits, 3 spirit stills. And they make weighty, meaty, hefty, but also very sort of wine casky, soft vanilla-y. And for the age statement, man, are you going to have a hard time finding anything that compares on a price point than a Glenfarclas. 17 years old. I think this is somewhere between like 120 and 150 bucks for a 17-year-old scotch. That nose in my subjective reality is just a deep, round vanilla bean malt. And then heady, weighty fruit, but like, really, not raisin, but like overripe red apple and maybe berries, deep berries. Slight grassy malty note. But the whole thing just smells rich, like a really decadent dessert set in front of you. 43%. Oh, man. And at 43, again, at a lower proof, you are hard-pressed to find something that delivers so well on the palate as Glenfarclas at a low proof. I as I've talked about, am becoming more and more a fan of really rich, beautiful, lower proof whiskeys. And Glenfarclas delivers at every level. The 12 does, I think it's a 15, 12, 15, 17. This 17, the palate is oily and viscous and almost dried fruit. Like if you ever get the camping packs and they've got like the dried fruit, dried, it's not mango, but dried apricots and things like that. It's in that direction of like really rich and dense and fruity, but also kind of dry and earthy. Ah, I love that. I'm gonna pour a little more and add a little bit of water. Bloop. Just a little bit. See what happens. Okay. Our senses create very convincing fictions. So convincing that we are almost certain that it is reality. And not just something we're interpreting, but a fact. This is how it is. This is what the world looks like. This is what is real. And we are sure, and we will argue about it, and we will disagree about fundamental realities because we are coming at it from such different perspectives, and all of us will argue from our little corner, this is the only view, right? I mean, this is that old, I think it's, I can't remember the origin of the story. I think it's Indian, but all the men grabbing hold of different parts, the blind men and the elephant, they all grab hold of a different part of the elephant, and they all describe something completely different, but they're all got a hold on the elephant. That's an idea that's just too big for only one of them to grasp. Roy said in his Monday morning memo, America tends to be this declarative and descriptive, this is what is, and when we communicate, just fundamentally, this is what is. I mean, if you've watched this, that's a lot of what this YouTube channel is. This is what is, this is what is. And it can come across as, Roy says, bombastic or clinical, and that's so much of reviews, right? When I sit down and say, here's on tasting, I don't regularly add the caveat, well, at least that's what I'm getting, because it makes it soft and kind of wishy-washy feeling. Instead, you just confidently describe your experience. But don't ever mistake confidence for the assumption that this is the only possible interpretation of this thing, and this is the only true reality. This is just my personal experience interpreting it my own way. Now, you got to have confidence in your own experience. That's the only way to live. You can't walk around nonstop second-guessing everything. That's paralyzing and terrifying. So you have to have some level of self-confidence that just says, yes, my experience is maybe not the only truth, but it is valid. My subjective reality is a valid interpretation of my environment. The best, when someone makes a bombastic statement, this is the best whiskey in Scotland, this is the most sherry cask you're ever going to try, a whole part of your brain goes, nah, but is it though? Right? And this is the basis of a lot of terrible marketing. This is this thing. Well, but what's way more powerful is to use sort of pulling statements that make the listener ask questions. Like, have you ever had a sherry cask whiskey that does this? Yeah, I just described Glenfarclas in all these ways. When was the last time you tried a sherry cask whiskey that hit all those markers for you, right? Because this one's doing it for me. Right? That sort of pulls you in. It evokes answers from inside the audience and the listener. And that's the best marketing. It's the best communication. It's the best handling of subjective reality. And sometimes I think it's more true, actually. My dad said one time, the thing about fiction is it's capable of holding truth that is too big for facts. And that's what makes fiction powerful. And I love that. So first, let's see what the water did. Oh man, that exploded the berries to the nose. So now it was dense vanilla, and it still is, but now it's vanilla berries and cream. It's weighty, almost musty cellar. Oh, the palate got a nice little slight pepper zest that just sort of decorated the top. I like it actually with a little dash of water. That's really nice. I liked it before too, though. It's good either way. I think the whole point of this is not to you should always second guess everything, but just don't know that your world and your reality is a fiction. And don't be afraid of your personal fiction. Just accept it. Accept that your world is a personal fiction. But just don't assume that it's the only story. Cheers to you, and I'm really glad you're here. If you like this particular set of fictions, then like and subscribe, and you will hear a whole lot more.